Now, will you be here to turn it on?
I can run down, just once you're done,
But what's the, what I gotta
you
do?
know,
Just hit
just talk
stop
about
recording?
it's recording.
So I just hit stop record on?
If you,
Yeah, come on.
that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You really just.
Was there any,
Hi, Rita.
was there anybody else?
No, I don't know if anybody else is coming.
I didn't know who else was on. I didn't see it on the invite, you know. Yeah,
All of town council and board of finance was sent via.
also got me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna present tonight, which is nice. I don't know if you got to see the board of selectmen one before. Did you get to see that one? Okay, because this just basically follows suit. Numbers changed a little bit only because we have better clarity on union contracts, our union contracts, stuff like that. But
Sorry, can I ask people to maybe speak a little bit louder? I can barely hear.
no, that's all right. I was in my normal voice mode, which is just basically sitting at a table with Christina. I apologize. Is that better?
Yes, thanks.
All right, so all I said was that basically the presentation is almost the exact same, except that we have a little bit greater clarity on some of the numbers because our union contract for DPW was settled, so, you know, some of the numbers are in that now, whereas before for the Board of Selectmen, they weren't, so we have a little bit more clarity.
Great.
But overall collectively, we're at 3.8. That's, and that, like I said, it takes into account the changes. We were at a 191 before the changes for the union contract, now we're at a 3.8. Overall, very close to the guidance. We do have one additional hire in the engineering department. That's for an engineering technician to bring us up to our, what I would say was our full complement. When I got hired here back in 1998, 99, we had 5 individuals in the department. And we've been running with 4 for a long time. We were running with 3 for a while, 8 times. Now we're running with 4, and this will bring us up to our full complement. So if I take that $100,000 out, that drops our number almost down to the guidance, which is around 3%. Brings us to about 3.3.
Are you dropping it?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying that's that one change. If I take that one change out, then you know, we get closer to the guidance, just to give an idea. No, we're not taking that guy out, that person out.
Could you tell me what that position is?
It's an engineering technician, it's inside the engineering department, so you can see from fiscal 25 to 26 is $100,000 change. It's $100,000, it's $104,000 change, but it's $100,000 change for the one person, so on the salary line.
But what are they?
Yeah,
They're gonna be boots on the ground for us out in the field. We have a lot of people, you know, call before he digs, a lot of people doing work at their houses, a lot of people doing work at the right of way, and then our own projects, having that individual be able to go out and take care of a residential complaint, take a look at a project, and save Maria's time, my time, Joe's time from going out there, you know, to look at certain things. If they're, you know, if they're much more important, then we'll go out. If they're small items, then that individual can take care of it.
and this is a position we've been encouraging, actually, Tiger, to consider for the last probably since I started on, well, probably before, since I started on town council. I think this is, you know, with the breadth of work that we're doing, to make sure that we're doing it, things are being overseen and properly, and people aren't working 80 hours a week.
Yeah, so that's basically,
It's more than justified to add a person.
Thank you. That's what, yeah, that's basically what that's it. We're answering that and bringing it, like I said, bringing it back to what the compliment was at the time. And you know, the compliment at the time back when I started was 5 people, and the workload was a lot less than it is now. So, you know, I think it's more than justifiable to bring another person on.
The Tiger, what's that person's background?
They'll have an engineering background, so we're looking at a degree person, say at an EIT level, possibly working towards their PE, some engineering training working towards their PE. With a little bit more bent on not design, but field. So field work, so that's what that's the thought.
Have you posted that job already?
Not yet, I can't really go, I wanna get a read on. The board of selectmen said yes, gotta kind of get a read on the board of finance and the council as to where they are, and then, cause I don't wanna post it and then not have the monies available, so we're kind of sometime around the April range. I'd like it, if I can swing it in the budget, I'd like it to start before July 1, before the construction season starts, but I gotta make sure that the monies are there, cause I don't wanna hire somebody and not have the monies there, or not or the position, not there, so.
Would it not help to have a professional engineer rather
I
than,
have a professional engineer.
could you use
Yeah.
two?
Yeah, but that's just, I could, but now I'm looking at it, now I'm increasing that number by about $20,000, where I'd rather have the gentleman or the woman who work their way in. So. So that kind of tells you where we're at. We did broach the $13 million mark this year. That was a marker that I had in my head, but there was no way we were gonna keep it underneath it. And then to give you an idea of where we sit via inflation, that bold red line is the inflation, line of inflation from 10 all the way through, and you can see that the majority of our departments are all below that line of inflation. We've tried to hold that line, and highway is pretty much directly on top of it. So as far as where highway started and ended, and where it is now, it's pretty much directly adjacent to the rate of inflation. It's our largest department. It kind of fits that it would be. And then to kind of walk through each department itself, administration, we have just a modest increase of 0.63%, $2,000, and the majority, a little of an increase in the salary line. That's just based on cost of living, and then some professional, some office equipment supplies, things of that nature. We did drop our outside contractors by $10,000. And that was in keeping with what we had been spending in previous years. Looking back to fiscal 22 on forward, we're averaging about $50,000 a year. So we had 60 in the budget, we dropped it by 10, but we had to increase our professional services line by 11, and that takes in our weather sentry. So that consolidates what we're paying for our weather sentry, which is basically the meteorologist that we have on call, the service that we have that we get every day. We get daily emails. We have an app on our phone. We got something on our computer, and then we can talk to the meteorologist as many times as we want during the day to then schedule our crews based upon what's happening in the weather world. And it definitely saves us on one call out. Probably saves us its annual cost. Let's put it that way. As far as like bringing in the men at the proper time. We've been using them pretty much a couple times a day for the past month or so, because we're actually having a winter, so.
And it works well.
It works very well, yeah, and this service is JFK, Shea Stadium, Citi Field, LaGuardia, O'Hare, they're all using this guy, this service, so I think that, we're with the heavy hitters as far as, and with the people that need to know correctly. So, and they've been very, very good to us, very good to the town for a long period of time, so.
Do they service a lot of towns or where?
Yeah, they service a lot of towns. I haven't asked, but when you look at the consultation, it's because you can see everyone else's request. You can see DPW's all the way, so Mass DOT, Rhode Island DOT, they use the service, and then various municipalities in the tri-state area use it as well. Bunch of colleges, so.
I thought you were doing that all alone.
What? No. No, we look at other sources too, but this is our go-to source of information. And then we can then dial in as to when we need to bring our crews in and what we'll be expecting.
Okay.
So. Any questions on admin overall?
Now it looks like pretty flat, right?
It's pretty cut and dry, pretty the next is the engineering. This is where I said we're bringing in the engineering tech. So without the increase overall, the percentage increase is 25.73%. But if I take that guy out, I'm at 0.8 for the department itself, just a $3,000 change overall for the admin side. And that again is basically just some increases in the salary lines for anything going on in that. Every other item we kept at flat, so we kept it at 0, knowing that we were going to be with this one request, which is our most important request of an additional staff member.
Why did part-time salaries go down?
Because we had Bob Mantilio working for us to do some work with the transfer station and the wastewater plant, transfer station for stickers, wastewater plant for sewage fees. And we're at a point now where we don't need that service, that help anymore. So we dropped that down overall. Any questions on engineering?
Nope.
The town buildings, we're looking at a 11% increase in total change of 150,000, which includes the town hall annex. We rolled that in a number of years ago. And this shows an increase in our outside contractors, our cleaning and our service contracts. And it's basically, we went back out to bid. All of our contracts end on June 30 of this year. So they all end. So we've gone out to bid. So we have hard numbers as to what we're looking at for the year coming forward. So for fiscal 26, we know where we're going to be. And each one, so like our cleaning contract was a 5-year contract, you know, so in essence, we're looking at what they had kept flat for 5 years. Now we're looking at the commensurate bump because of the 5 years of keeping that number flat. And then service contractors and outside contractors, same thing. The service contracts are all our maintenance items. So maintenance on our HVAC and other systems. And then our outside contractors are just servicing those units. And the only thing we say is we've got 50 plus buildings and they're all a year older except for the police department. It's the only one that got younger. So
just to be clear, the 30K, 60K, and 49K, are those total number or the increase?
increase.
Because you didn't have contractors doing this at all.
No, I did have contractors doing it all, but based upon what my contracts were before that were bid out prior, the change between the bidded price last year and the bid price this year, that's the delta.
How many contracts are we talking about?
Quite a few. Overall, we have at least a dozen on both sides for our service contracts and out. So we have service contracts for we have no staff, so I have one staff member. That's it. So I've got Bill and then one individual that works, doing minor repairs and other work in the town and trying to keep each building open and working. So everything is subcontracted out. HVAC is subcontracted out, plumbing, electrical, everything is subcontracted out.
So on average, how much of an increase was there on the contracts?
On average,
You're talking 2%, 3%?
No, no, much greater than that. So the outside contractors is up 12%. Our property cleaning is up 27%, and then our
service contract up 24.
service.
So did all these bids come in this much higher, Tiger?
Yes, and it's just where we're at present in this world, and we had so we added a little bit just because the buildings are a little bit older, but the cleaning is just strictly the cleaning itself, and we had to add back in the PD. PD's it's new, it's a little bit larger, a little bit different.
So Tiger, when it comes to the contracts, did you bid out the contracts
Yes.
again? And you have the same service people for the most part?
Not necessarily, some of it changed,
Okay.
depending, but some are the same, some are not. I'd have to look back and see exactly how it shook out one together. But the cleaning contract for itself was 5 years old. So it's 5 years. They basically kept themselves flat for 5 years, and now you're looking at a 5-year bump overall.
Now, the schools have found synergy in insourcing some of the trades, but I take it we don't have a critical mass to get that.
It's a great question, and we look at that each year as to how much and then what we would do, right? And we're not at that.
Yeah.
We still don't trip like say one trade doesn't trip the
Yeah.
trade. So we were looking at trying to hire like a jack of all trades, say an electrician who could then do HVAC and do some plumbing kind of thing, because the electrician seems to be the one that can kind of go forward. We still don't, we're still not there. We're very close. We've been looking at this for probably 5 years or more as to should be hired. And we even looked at one point in time of trying to gain some synergy with the BOE. And we sat with BOE a couple of years ago, Cheryl and I, to look, but they couldn't offer them on a daily basis, couldn't offer them on a once per week basis. It could be on a kind of an off.
When they didn't need them.
Yeah, it just didn't work. It was, you know, it was a great conversation, and they were very, you know, they were nice in trying to offer, but they have their own requirements, and, you know, not for nothing, you know, I'm much more on, I want the student to be comfortable, not as, you know, if I have to look at it on a hierarchy basis, I want the student and the teachers to be comfortable, and then I'll worry about our staff, and then I'll worry about everything else. So I'm not gonna draw something from the BOE for something that we consider to be critical, when it's not as critical as say, you know, they've got 180 days to go to school, that's not where it's at, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
We couldn't hire our own jack of all trades, like if it wasn't the same person.
No, we could, but we're just not, to Tom's point, we're not at that critical mass yet where it would actually be cost effective. It's still much better because no one comes alone, everyone comes with a partner. So you're looking at, it's almost a 2-person hire versus a 1-person hire. Or we would have to utilize the gentleman that we have to go with the people that are coming in, and then we lose that gentleman as well for that time. So you're really, we're just not at that point overall where it's in our best interest. Property cleaning, definitely not. We wouldn't want to be hiring custodial staff. But really on the service contracts and the outside contractors, that's those two combined still don't get us, in each individual trade doesn't trip that, you know.
Tiger does service contracts with that increase of 12, 24, and 27%. Is that locked in then for the next 5 years, or they're gonna go up every year?
There's a slight increase in year over year for them. I'd have to look back on the specifics of it. We haven't brought these forward yet, because we have to wait for, you know, monies in the budget, but once at that point in time, then we'll bring it to the Board of Selectmen for approval sometime in April, once the budget's set. Then moving to highway department is just $120,000 year over year, change 3%. In essence, that was the take on staffing itself, and then we had some reductions that we tried to then stay with where we were based upon previous years. So we did take out $32,000 in outside contractors. That specifically is for the cleaning of the downtown for snow. So if it snows appreciably between Thanksgiving and New Year's, we come in to clean it all out so people can shop and utilize the downtown without being deterred by snow piles and what have you, where some people might not want to come. And then that was determined that if that's the case and we decide to move snow at that time, that's an emergency, and we would then come back to the boards for additional money, but there was no reason to tax the taxpayer for something that we might do versus something that we will do. And then overall, we basically, if you look at the road maintenance account, you'll see that there's a large deduct in the road maintenance account, but then there's a commensurate bump in our supplies auto truck and then our supplies general. So what you're looking at between those two is just the divvying up as to where we should be crediting the money spent. So the thought was that instead of coming out of road maintenance, certain items where auto supplies should be there, certain where supplies general, so it should be there. So we're looking at it with finances, with the finance department's help on trying to pocket everything in the right spot. So, you know, or bucket everything in the right spot as far as an expenditure goes. So this year we're doing that in fiscal 25. We moved money around to try to bucket the money more appropriately. And then this is what our shakeout is for going forward for next year. And we'll likely have some transfers between accounts as we get more adept at determining where exactly each expenditure should lie. But that's guidance from the finance department. And then we had a reduction in supplies, stone and gravel, where our bins are full right now, so, and we weren't coming up to our $30,000 approved budget from the past couple of years. We were basically around $20,000. So we dropped that line by $10,000 for that.
Talk about the salary increase.
The salary increases, that's the bump in from strictly from the union. And when you're looking at what you had is, so last year I don't think it was in the budget, now it's in the budget as far as like what the change was going to be, so you're looking at kind of a double hit. So it's not a 7% overall, it's a 7% overall year over year in the budgeting, but we didn't know where we were going to be based upon when we started the budget process.
So the low.
Yes.
Hey, Tiger,
Yeah,
you know, to that point in the 7%, so the budget book that has all the details on it, expenditures, year over year, and that's where the 7.15% comes from. But when I look in the back where it has the details, you know, by position, bargaining, non-bargaining, I can't find the 24, 23 actuals are different, and those numbers. Let's start with this one. So 26 recommended 2318, and that's there, that's fine. Then I look at the front of the book and it says 25 adopted or revised. It's 2163 and 2165, but the back of the book says 25 is 2248.
that's
So
correct.
the increase, so which one's right?
I'll have to ask Josh that question. I know what was adopted, and that's the Tom's point, right? So you're looking at year over year from what was adopted to what we
Yeah.
are present, that's your 7%, but at the revised number of fiscal 25 likely is no longer 2165,917, it's probably 2248,112.
It is.
Right, so I'll talk to Josh about that and revising the 25 numbers to better reflect what actually occurred versus, because it does look a little awkward that the men are not getting a 7%. You guys approved a 2% increase year over year.
Exactly. Because all it's going to do tonight, for example, and then town council are going to be like, "Oh my God, 7%!
Right.
That's huge," and that's not true, right?
Right. When we get out of here, I'll talk to Josh so that we're a little bit better prepared to talk about that difference there, because as you mentioned, it's not apples to apples at present. And I know we run into this in the past only because when we get into the time of bargaining, we don't put the money in it because we don't want to tip our hand. So we keep money in contingency and we hold the money in contingency and then put it back in the budget when the contract's settled. So that's the problem that we're having, right? Is that there's a little bit of a timing delay. But I'll talk to Josh about that and we'll get those numbers corrected.
Tiger, highways, who covers that snow removal? Is that right?
Both departments, Parks and Highway, do snow, so the highway does all the roads and the parking lots. And the parks do the sidewalks and the school lots. So, and then directly around the school, we have a delineation between where the janitor, the custodian does, and then we take over.
Got it.
So.
I mean, I just think that like all of that, having the roads plowed is like the most visible representation to people that their their tax dollars are being wisely spent. And I actually want to compliment how we're doing that, because I'm comparing this to other folks I know in other states, other cities where it's not as efficient. Their taxes are lower than ours. And so I'm just pointing out the fact that we do this well. This is one thing that is very, very visible to our residents. And it's super important that we get right. And so far, I do think we're getting it right, at least in my area. But I think this is an important part to get right.
No,
You're right.
I think we're doing it as well. Sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Especially right now, Tiger, right? We're having these budget meetings are public and you look
Mhm.
outside and if this was not plowed and there was ice and whatnot, people get really pissed.
Pissed.
Like, you know, I can tell you, I live in a different municipality and I travel through about 6 or 7 to get here. And it's market change between where I live and where, and my town is the exact same size, almost the exact same mileage, exact same square footage. You know, we're the Rams, we're red and white, you know, but it's a totally different ballgame where I live versus where I work. So yeah, I'll let the parks guys and highway guys know, but we appreciate that. I think they do a fantastic job overall.
You mentioned sidewalks, is the split of what we plow and don't plow the same as it has been in the past?
Yes, yeah.
And you
yes.
haven't had pushback on those stuff that we don't plow?
That's well, we've had a couple of comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tiana's gotten some comments, I've gotten some comments. I had one resident, when I explained exactly what was going on and why, she understood it, and then, you know, she lived on Forest Street, she lived on Parade Hill, she was walking on Forest Street. And we don't do Forest Street, but we do Heritage Hill. I said, well, walk Heritage Hill from Parade Hill and you can get to town on a plowed sidewalk. Don't take Forest Street. So she was a little bit more understanding at that time, but we've had some pushback. I think the majority of people understand exactly when you mentioned budgetary, you know, problems and things of that nature. I think they start to understand it. Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
my neighbors have not been complaining about our sidewalks not being done. I think they understand, but I don't know. I understand.
Yeah.
Tiger, my only other question on highways is what's driving the electricity increase 25%?
So the basically what we did was we took a look at where we were overall. And you can see that we were kind of under budgeted based upon our actual of fiscal 24. So that's why we went back, took a look at where we were, and then added a percentage on top of it based upon what Eversource is telling us, which is about an 11% increase year over year for us. So we kind of scrapped that middle number of 30,000, took a look at the 24, 23, 41, and then we did this across the board, every single department, every single building that we have. Bill Osman, myself, and Josh sat down, looked at everything, and then kind of we were trying to reset, if you will, instead of just saying, oh, Eversource, since we're gonna go up by 8%, we'll just increase by 8%. We decided to take a look back. Deanna wanted us to take a look back on what are our actual spend and not tax anyone for you know, indiscriminately or not if we didn't need to. So we took a look at it, and that's basically the new number going forward is 37,642.
Yeah, I mentioned that in the BoB meeting the other day. Eversource, they were amortizing the public option over 10 months. That will end in May this year. So that will go away or will be significantly reduced. So there's a possibility that if that's factored in using last year's and prior year actuals, that we have some buffer there potentially.
Well, it might, the departments aren't allowed to use those lines anyways. So we can't, if I have additional monies in my electrical account or gas, oil, water, whatever, any utility account, we're not allowed to pull those. Only finance is allowed to utilize those. So it's not like the department could say, oh, I've got extra money in electricity and I'm gonna use it for outside contractors or, you know, general supplies. We're not allowed to do that. The only people that can move that money is the finance department and the board of finance. We can't do that. So they're pretty much locked. So what we did was we kind of locked salaries and we locked these items out from the departments and say, these are not things that you have control over. We
Yeah.
When they have it, so.
Yeah, not suggesting you guys, use it. All I'm saying is that with that public option coming down or going away after May, there is a, this may not be 25% after all, but that's okay.
Okay, well, I'll have Bill take a look at that as well and see what he knows on it, and talk to Scott and Sean from the BOE, and see what they're looking at.
Remind me, other than the nature center, where else on town buildings do we have solar panels? And what is the revenue?
So we have solar on the highway department, Pool,
Yeah,
the nature center. Yeah, and here, sorry, I forgot about here. Look, I'm trying to remember, and here, it's very difficult to see. We know that they're working, we know that, you know, we're generating electricity, but given the increases from Eversource, it's difficult to then determine exactly how much of a savings we're making. We know that we're just saving money because we're generating electricity, but we haven't done a calculation back to say, okay, this saved us X amount of dollars.
because some of the installations were done at the same time as the library. And we know that the library's connectivity was
Right.
mistakenly connected. They had to do
We
it
were
to
before
replace-
we were way before the library, so we've been in place for a couple of years.
But do you know that we are gaining a savings overall on the electricity?
We know we are gaining a savings, yeah, but I'll try to have that dialed in as to exactly what that is. We
Okay,
know we're generating electricity, we know it's coming to us.
okay,
That we know, there's an app and a website that we can actually go on and look, anyone can go on and take a look and see what we're generating. Today might not be a good day, but you know, overall,
and have we received all the rebates back?
we are
Yes.
receiving all the credits that we're due.
Okay,
Anything else on highway with the transfer station? Transfer station is minus 0.3%. It is in essence, we again took a look at where we were on every item and then cut according to what our actual spend was. So we have a reduction in recycling, and then we have a reduction in our groundwater monitoring. We're getting close to the end of our groundwater monitoring. That's a 30-year lifespan on the cap. We've been there for 20+ years now, so we're getting close to the end, and we're down to quarterly reporting. And then repairs, machinery and equipment, we're buying a new loader this year, so we reduced that line down. That kind of tells you where basically we just took a hard look at where we were, where our budget was, and what our actual spend was for the past 3 years, and tried to reduce where we could.
Decrease in recycling,
So the recycling, it's not it sounds
is this gonna
bad.
be popular?
It sounds bad, so what we have is we actually have one hauler that's not coming to us. So, he's got a couple of additional clients, he's got his own yard, so right now, he's going elsewhere. So, but we don't know if that's going to change, get a couple more clients in town, start to come back to us. So we don't know, so there's just one larger hauler that is actually not utilizing the station, so therefore, we're not generating, you know, any revenue off of it, but we're also not having any costs associated with it, so.
So you're assuming that we can't get rid of all the recyclables? Is that-
Yes, well, we pay a fee to get.
We can't
recycled.
Process them, we can't recycle everything we like to recycle. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. I'm saying that when he's picking up his clients in town, he's not bringing his stuff to us anymore. He's bringing it elsewhere.
it's a dumping.
We
It's a
pay.
revenue issue.
So what happens is he pays us, okay, to dump his stuff, and then we
Okay.
pay to have it taken out.
Gotcha, okay.
If it's not coming into us, we don't have to pay for it to leave. So
I see.
that's basically where we're at. So we're seeing a reduction in our tipping fee in
Yeah.
our revenue side, which isn't shown here, because that's totally
Okay.
separate. And then, but then on our expenditure side, since the volume coming in is a little bit less, the volume going out is less. So therefore, that's where we're seeing a little bit of reduction. But we don't know if that's gonna stay, because he might return.
Okay,
We don't know, but at
that would
present,
increase revenues if you did.
that would increase, yes, that would increase the revenue, but we try to have it where our tipping fees are slightly higher than our cost for removal. So there's a slight, about $4. So it's 111 for us to get rid of, 115 to take it in. So there's a small incremental increase for us on the revenue side, but one comes down. So
Okay.
that's, and basically looking at where we've been, it was a good move to make that reduction. So it's not it's the overall volume coming in versus the overall
Yeah.
volume coming out. That recycling is going to another facility, being recycled through that process versus us.
Good.
Yeah, I don't want everybody to think that, oh, we're down, to your point, I don't want to think that we're down 25%, you know, $25,000, and we're not really. So Parks was handled under different liaison group, and then we get to the Nature Center. The Nature Center, again, we looked at year over year, and we just made an adjustment. We paid for the utilities at the Nature Center, and we made an adjustment there to those lines based upon usage. And you'll see that we're at a minus 14% or minus $11,000. But basically, it's a drop in each one of the services: electricity, fuel, oil, and propane. And if I move to just town utilities itself, this is for our hydrant service and for our street light. So our overhead lights, we rent our overhead lights or lease our overhead lights from Eversource. And then our hydrant service is the service that we pay to Aquarium for the mains that we have in the ground and the hydrants that we have. And we've been staying with a standard 5%, 3%, because we don't know where we're gonna be. They haven't come forward with their changes from Pura. They've told us where they're thinking of going, but they haven't told us where they're gonna go. So each year we just add 5%, 3%, and then try to shake it back out. And looking at where we are, I think we might be able to reduce a little bit on the hydrant service based upon what I just received yesterday from them as our hydrant service. We might be able to drop that number a little bit. But that's just the overall guidance that we've been taking over the years was 5 and 3 for those lines.
That's water use.
That's hydrant. So hydrant service is basically, we pay per inch, per foot fee for the size of the main that we have in the ground and the linear footage that we have.
Fixed fee each year.
It changes slightly. Right now, it's a factor of a per inch foot is 0.099. And it's factored into the 2 million inch feet that we have. Because you have to have at least a 6-inch line or greater to service hydrants. And then we pay a hydrant fee on top of that. Our hydrant fee last year was around $330 a unit. The letter I got yesterday is $181 a unit. Market changed. I just want to make sure that they're right, because $330 down to $181 when they were at $330 for a number of years, that's a big drop. I don't know why that's happening, and why are we less before I say, oh, let's drop this line down. But that's basically it. We pay for, in essence, we're leasing every hydrant and then we're using the pipe in the ground. But then they pay us property tax for the pipe that they have in the ground back. Because it's property that's here in town that they own, that they gotta pay property tax. So they pay us property tax back.
Do we come back even or?
I don't know. I have to ask Debbie that question as to what he receives versus what we pay. Out, but again, it's this is a necessary fee in the end to have hydrants wherever we need them.
And then there's the dry hydrants and.
Dry hydrants are separate.
Okay.
Yeah, dry hydrants, because those are either privately owned or we have some at the public right of way that we've installed and that we maintain, but that's completely separate. This is only anything that's associated with Aquarian's lines that we pay for. So then the next would be tree service. It's a 0.01% increase. We gave the tree ward an additional $1,000 in salary. You hadn't had a bump in quite some time, and I reduced one line by $1,000, so I was going to come out even. But that's the change in Social Security between the two, so I forgot to factor that in, $76. Because I was trying to be at 0. So, but that's literally we've been doing 12 bids a year for a year or two now. It seems to be working out really well. We had an increase a couple of years ago to get us to the 12 bids a year, and I don't want to change yet on that. I think that we're dialing it in pretty tight. Bob's doing a very good job, and that's where we're at. The year before, out of a $539,000 budget, we spent $536,000. So we were as tight as we could be on that budget. And then the last one is wastewater plant. So the wastewater plant, the total change is $1,500. And we're looking at, we're into another year for our sludge hauling contract, and our sludge hauling contract has a COLA written into it, so there's an increase annually, and then we're looking at an increase for our supplies line for chemicals. But the chemicals overall, the amount of money we're spending on chemicals is far less than what we would need to do if we were to put in an improvement to the plant. The improvement to the plant to take out zinc and phosphorus was somewhere on the order of $10 to $12 million. And the difference in the lines for the sewer is very nominal in comparison.
Where's the wastewater line?
Oh, it's in its own department, so sewers, you gotta go back through further down.
Further down.
Sorry, it's its own department, so it sits with a portion of tax collector, tax assessor.
Gotcha.
And it's there, sorry about that, the one anomaly. You have any questions there? He's pretty tight overall. In that.
Where are we with the sewer plant, maintenance and,
We're well, Nick does a great job as far as where we are on our overall maintenance.
Right.
You know, we're 24 years in, 25 years in, so we've been replacing a lot of our large infrastructure, so the grid screen, both clarifiers, we're working on our UV system. So our UV system, the bid package is almost ready to go out. That's a $4 million project, so that bid package is almost ready to go out on the street, and then look to replace our existing UV, put in an additional lane that's required, and go forward from there. It's about a year-long project. So we're AECOM is our consultant in that. They've done a very good job on that.
but that was approved already.
That was approved already, that was last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have nothing there, it's just, we were hoping to be out now and then receive bids in this fiscal year. That's why we had the money in last year's budget versus this year's budget. And it's basically ready. We've got some things that we gotta pursue on a grant to try to get the grant from
The state.
the state and the feds. And then at that point in time, once we have that in line, then we'll go out to bid.
Is that what Himes came to tour last year, Tiger?
Yes, thank you. Yes, exactly. So Congressman Himes came in and did a tour. He earmarked, I believe it was $1 million for us for that. So we're just waiting for that to come forward.
Hey, Tiger, just curious, I think it's helpful to see the comparison of, our stuff versus inflation, but what it kind of discounts is like, we want to see the slope, not necessarily, like you're starting at a higher level with that red line. And so it's hard to see like how it's actually comparing. I mean, you could kind of eyeball it.
It's basically your eyeball, and I would,
Yeah.
I did it, so I did two different starting points. One was for the highway department because they had a much larger budget, and then one at $1 million, and just kind of ran it across just to stay at $1 million. Instead of having to do the calculation for everybody and back it up to fiscal 10. But I can certainly go through that mathematical,
It's just, I mean, it's actually helpful to see it over time, like how it's going. And like I said, I could probably eyeball it, but it's a little deceiving, just how it's set up.
Not trying to be deceptive at all.
I know you're not. You're trying to be helpful. I get it.
Dollars, I'm like, okay, I just set it $1 million and show it, but I'll go back and do the calculation and start everybody off.
I mean, I could eyeball it.
Yeah.
It's just more of a, kind of a process thing, maybe to think about for next year.
No, that's no problem. I went through them all yesterday, so I can go back through the exercise. Just so
I don't want to add work that's not going to add value, but yeah, just something to think about.
no problem. So then moving to capital, because that's our, the biggest area. We are down overall. We didn't include the PD, so the PD was completely separate. But year over year, we're down about $5 million from one ask to the next. So if we look at engineering it's pretty much everything is the standard number. The only change is, we went from 3 million last year for pavement management to 3.5, but that was, we spoke about it last year as far as, last year I had done an analysis over the next 5 years as to where we were gonna be. And it shook out at about $3.5 million per year. But last year I was able to say, okay, we can work our way in at 3 million and then go forward from there. So that's the only real change. After that, everything is pretty standard as far as what we've asked in the past, what we're moving forward. We did reduce sidewalk improvements from $750,000 last year to $500,000 this year. And that'll be for the Putnam Road area phase 2. We're out to bid right now for the Putnam Road area phase 1, which is basically just all of Putnam Road. And that estimate's somewhere on the order of 500,000. And then the second phase would be to do Butler, Danvers, and Whiffletree and complete that whole area of quote unquote behind the Y.
How many miles of sidewalks are you planning?
I flip back and see exactly what that number is. I didn't calculate. I don't calculate on a linear footage basis, but I can tell you what that is overall. With the numbers, we used to have a number of, how much it was about $250,000 a mile, but that's about 10 years ago. So it's increased from there. That was at about $10 a square foot. Now we're paying about $15 a square foot for sidewalk in place, and we were paying at the time around $75 per linear foot for granite, including the material. Now we're at about 100 or so for that. So the numbers have increased over the past, but I'll get you the how many linear feet it was. I had it all calculated. I just do it on a linear foot basis. I didn't make the calculation back out. I don't want to quote it off my head and say I'm gonna be wrong in that regard. And then the only add here is that the bridge is under 20. We had monies in for engineering. Now we're going forward with some construction on those. We have our consultant now looking at some of our structures under 20 feet. The first one that they looked at was Lakeview Avenue, and that one turned out to be a complete reconstruction of $2 million. That's on track to be bid out very soon in the April range, with the thought of construction beginning June 1, and then it should be a 1-season operation, and then that culvert to be repaired and back in service. And right now we have $2 million slated for that, but we haven't, since he's still working through the final design, we haven't done a final cost estimate yet to see where we're at. To know, we know we'll be below 2 million, we just don't know exactly where.
Tiger, the threshold for bonding is 50,000, right?
That's correct.
I'm looking at the list here, and there's guide rails, cameras, security measures, vehicle replacement, 50,000 in tax support column right now.
Right. Over 50 goes to bonded, and that's a discussion for when I was talking to Todd the other day. That's a discussion for the Board of Finances to see whether or not you want to change that limit up or down, depending. But I think it's 50,001 goes to the bonding side, 50,000 itself comes down, but I'm not quite.
Oh, okay. Let's add $1.
Yeah.
But is it 50,000 total for a grouping of things or individual pieces?
It's, well, I guess by the line, right? So it's not
an expenditure for an item for 50,000 or more.
no. I'm trying to understand the question. So it's they're going by account line, not necessarily expenditure. So, the cameras and security it wouldn't be a $50,000 project. It would be several installations that tally up to $50,000. Signage improvements definitely is not $25,000 in one installation. That's across the board.
So it's line item.
Yeah, it's by line, and some of them we're looking at what the useful life is, so a sign is 7 to 10 years, so you really don't, we're judging it for it, do you really want to be a bonded and pay interest on that over time? So, but that's a discussion for the Board of Finance to set that guidance.
Do you have vehicles in that as well?
Vehicles in here? No. So if we have a vehicle, depends upon what it is. So a larger one, like a loader, you know, we have a very large piece of equipment this year from the highway department, that will definitely be bonded at $600,000. So that's definitely a bonded item. The majority of our vehicles are over $50,000, so yeah, they would hit that bonded side.
And what's the lifespan on them?
We're getting 10 to 15 years out of them. I think she's bonding them at 10. That's a question for Ann. So,
Okay,
but she's definitely bonding them at less than what we're getting for the useful life out of the vehicle. We don't want to be paying interest on something that we don't own anymore. So she's definitely very conservative on that. So we're paid off before that piece of equipment or that vehicle leaves our yard. You know. So this is what I was talking about before, where I kind of averaged out per year was a 3.343, but you know, year over year, so I averaged it out to 3.5 million for the ask. And this kind of tells you where we were versus if I had asked for an increase in budget of 2% year over year, we would have our request would have been $72 million. We actually received 56 million with a savings of 16 million by keeping it flat and working through instead of, you know, going. So our additional measures that we've been doing, crack sealing, cape sealing, microthin overlay, pot in place, have all saved us monies over time and given us almost the same product. Yeah. And this just tells you where our PCI is now. Our PCI is hovering just under a 90 and will pretty much stay there for the rest of time. And our average at that point in time is a 90, but our low is an 80, 78 up to 100. And at 78, that's when the phone starts ringing. So we know that we're right on the marker as to when we should touch a road based upon what our residents, the expectations are from our residents.
but our index used to be lower than 90. 90 is pretty high.
We used to be 77. We started with the 77, and then for a couple of years, as we got it rolling, we tanked all the way down to 74, and now we're up to just under 90. And then based upon where we are and how we're cycling through everything, we'll stay right at about an 89. Looking forward on the next 5 years, I'm just at an 89 point change, depending on where we are.
But what's the additional cost?
The additional cost.
So if we were at 85 versus 89 or 80 versus 89, what would be?
So at this point in time, there's virtually no additional cost. You know, you're right now we're at a stasis point where every one of our roads is in play. So for a number of years, we were at about an additional $500,000 to get our PCI up.
Right.
Now we're at the point where we're at a stasis point where every single road is in play. So for the first 20 years, we were adding not only to what we were doing maintenance wise, but reconstruction wise. Right. Now we have every single road except for Pine Street has been done, has had work on it. Pine Street will be done this year. So every road's in play, meaning that every road is either being crack sealed or microthin overlay or cape sealed. Everything's being worked on at once. So that's why we're not seeing a bump anymore. We're just seeing we're going to be flat. You know, you can certainly take your foot off the pedal, but there's not all it'll be is just a drop. You're not going to see you don't see a savings overall. I can kind of try to kick a road here and there, but there's not really a savings per se.
The Tiger, clearly, personal observation over the last few years that improvement is visible to myself at least. So great job there. Just out of curiosity, how do you determine the PCI? Is that an independent party who does that? Is it you guys who assess the index?
Both. So we had an initial review back in 2004 that came in and set our PCI, and then they gave us. I was actually able to calculate exactly what their depreciation curve was. So I was actually able to use their depreciation curve, and I've been using that ever since. And then back in 2019, when we were 15 years into the program, we had a consultant come in and relook at our entire network again and reset, quote unquote, reset our PCI. And he actually came in a little bit higher than where I was. And back in 2019, we were at about 85 and change, and he came in at an 87 and change. I kept us at the 85 and then reset us to the 87. I don't want to be overly, where I said, oh, we're all at an 87, I would rather been more conservative and kept it at the 85, but it was a nice check on our road network to know that after 15 years, you know, we were being a little conservative, and, you know, they came in and told us I was worried that it'd be lower, you know, that'd be worse, but he came in saying we're a little bit higher, which was a good
Do
thing.
these guys come in at a fixed interval every 5, 10 years or something?
You can, it's expensive, it was $105,000 for them to come in and take a look, so I don't want them to come in, you know,
Yeah.
like, we did the 15-year look, and then we'll continue forward and say, this is where we're at, maybe do another year, another look at 10 years out from now, or what have you, but I don't think it's cost effective to have them come in. They like to come in and they want to do an annual, you know, they'll come in and do it annually at $30,000 a year, that's not, I don't think that's worthwhile.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
Where am I looking in the budget book at this?
That's just not on my, that's just.
No, I'm sorry, just the dollars,
The dollars were 3.5, so that was on the pavement management improvement program under administration and capital.
Can you provide us with them,
What?
that slide?
Yeah, the
Oh,
slides
I
for
see.
that.
It's on the.
Yeah,
so that's the 3.5.
that's the 3.5.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. Anything else on engineering administration? I got half of it.
What are the bridges do you have coming down the pipe?
Large bridges, we don't have any. We have one that's a Nursery Road that we've been looking at for a while. But the deck is still in good shape. Everything is fine. It's in a good condition.
Mhm.
It's not excellent, but it's also not fair and poor. So the state comes in every 2 years and does an analysis, and we'll see what they say again. These other ones are all large. It's tough to say. It's called the bridge under 20 feet, but that's the span. But we have a lot of culverts that we're taking a look at right now. So we have them looking at another 4 right now, and we'll see. Hopefully everything's a small repair. We're looking at Richmond Hill and a couple of other locations, and hopefully they're all just small $10,000-$15,000 repairs to just maintenance work instead of actually reconstruction.
I'm looking at this number and I'm thinking like, every road is in play. We do a fabulous job. How do we do this for $3 million? It just seems like we do so much. Not every road.
We don't do every road every year, but we do, every road gets touched every 5 years. So crack sealed every 5, overlaid every 10 to 11, depending upon its PCI. And then we look at complete reconstruction again at the 20-year mark, but we try to then push that 20 out, 23, 24, or even further. So we're looking at being able to gather another 10 years off. If we can gain another 10 years off of it, that's why that number stays low. Because I don't want to be into the reconstruction number. The reconstruction number is 3 times the cost of a mill and pave number. So we want to be in the mill and pave and the lesser products. Best description for that. I wouldn't say lesser products, just less costly. They give us the same amount of time, longevity wise, but they're less expensive to install. So we've been expanding our toolbox as we go, and that's why they call pavement management, right? So it's more of it used to be set and forget it. 20 years you go back and pave it again. 20 years you go back and pave it again. It's not that way anymore. We try to touch them all the time to make sure that they're in good condition. So.
Given the outcome, I'm happy with the cost.
Trying to get to the next. So I got a half an hour before the department head meeting. So the next is town buildings, 6,265,000. Inside here, we've got the Waving House exterior improvements at 2.45 million. That's from the Hoffman report. So they came in, took a look, and they're working right now with our architect that we had on board, Architecture Preservation Studios. And we had a meeting yesterday, a couple more tweaks to the plan set, and the plan set will go out at the end of February. And then we're gonna get a hard bid in. We want to get a hard bid in before the end of the budget cycle, so that we can then start. Our goal is to have it to the first selectmen in May 4th at their meeting. So we'll look to bid it in March, get our bids back, and then go through the process of approval from the boards to get the funding in place so that we can start right after the board of selectmen meeting. And then we have a similar, we had Hoffman come in and take a look at Irwin House. And Irwin House is at 1.32 million, it's 1.319, but that's for all the exterior work at the Irwin House, including the garage, not the barn and not doors. And now the thought is to whether or not we keep Irwin House or we tear it down. So right now we're working towards costs of tearing it down. And so there's a environmental review, environmental cost, and then the actual demolition costs. And we're working through those three numbers. We're meeting with the environmental consultant tomorrow to get their proposal and then what they think will be the cost on the environmental side. And we're working with a demo contractor just to get a budget number so we can compare. And then we're gonna compare what it would be to build a similar building. Possibly there.
I think, Tiger, what would be good, to have, if you guys not already planning to get that, is that the tearing it down and rebuilding versus the repair and the annual maintenance of the house, right, with whatnot, so to have a good apples to apples comparison.
I'll ask Bill, yeah, because this is actually only the exterior, it's not the interior, so.
Yeah.
If you wanted to then purpose build the interior, you're talking additional monies, or just maintenance on the inside, so there's that number at 1.3 would likely increase by say $200,000 to $400,000. So you're at 1.5, 1.7 to get the building back to house people, but now you're still in a residence, which is completely different than a commercially built building, and it's not purposely built. So even if you say you're at million and three quarter versus what to tear it down and then build a purpose-built building, but I'll look at what we had going forward as far as our maintenance costs for the house itself, and get that number to you.
Yeah, not so much myself, but you know, when this is, I'm sure this is gonna come up tonight as well, Tiger.
Yeah.
It's something for us to have. I think this is a decision the town has to make now. Do we pull up the Band-Aid and tear it down and rebuild, or do we maintain and keep, you know, put Band-Aids on it, so.
Absolutely.
Well, Nick, also, the fact is that we need to study what the use would be,
Yeah,
what the best interest is in it for the town.
Yeah,
Whether
great.
twin space or office space or conference space or combination.
Pretty speculative.
do we need to build, do we need to?
Right, apples
Like,
to apples.
I like, how about that decision?
Apples to apples is really problematic too, for the reasons you're
Yeah.
all saying.
Tiger, what, to your knowledge, what department or whatever in town has a space problem that may be solved if we rebuild something else there and house those folks?
Well, we're at present, we're bringing IT back into the building. And we're able to manage that at present, but it's more on the not-for-profit side as to what is out there for the not-for-profits. And you know, what's available for them in New Canaan and at what cost. Right now, we have New Canaan Cares in the building and we have CERT in the building. So CERT uses it for storage and for meeting space. Thought is that we might be able to move CERT to the PD. But New Canaan Cares has been there ever since we asked them to vacate out of the town hall. Out of the playhouse to reconstruct the playhouse. So, and then there's other not-for-profits that are looking for space that they necessarily can't find to their needs in town.
The
Well-
not-profits would pay rent, right, to the town?
Yeah, that's the thought. Yes, that
But only-
they would either help with the construction costs or rent or both.
Okay.
Yeah,
But the only reason you even get to that question is the assumption that you're gonna subsidize the rent for the nonprofits, because otherwise they could go and live anywhere, right? So you're really making an investment in taxpayers subsidizing nonprofit office space, and that's a policy question that I wouldn't assume that we would do that.
Right, but right now you have neither, right? You have no income and you have expenditures from maintaining and whatnot. So
Right.
tax there right now means nothing. All they do is pay.
If you discount the value of the importance of providing office space for nonprofits, then it's kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
You know, unless somebody makes the historical preservation argument, which I'm not hearing. It's
No,
gotta come
it's-
down,
There's no historical preservation.
so it comes down and you're in a certain position. Separate question, should we be in the business anywhere in town of subsidizing space for nonprofits? And if so, which ones? So.
Yeah,
It's tough to do an apples to apples with providing opportunities with nonprofits if you don't.
Let me just give you an example. When we purchased Irwin, we thought that it would become a swing space building. So there wasn't much investment in it because we adapted it as needs came up. When the police station needed a building, we no longer had Irwin as an option. So we had to stay with Cherry Street with the rental we had for the Board of Ed. So putting nonprofits into our buildings creates a financial deficit to us. So what we would be better off if we wanted to help a nonprofit, and that was within the guidelines of our charter, would be to subsidize part of their rent in another facility, but not to give them space within our building because it limits our ability to use them.
yeah, I think to Tiger's point, we need to actually all your points, a strategic review and maybe move some folks around so we can maximize the benefits of the town's assets.
And then the only other thing we have in here is $265,000 for the powerhouse reconstruction. I think she sent an email last night.
Can I ask you a question about that? I heard that the bathrooms, is that part of the reconstruction budget?
They're
Already budgeted.
So
No,
there
yes,
were interior bathrooms that need to be upgraded.
right, but the exterior public bathroom.
The exterior public bathrooms are separate. We had a separate monies for that. That was an ARPA funded
Okay.
project. This is strictly for the lobby itself, the additional monies for the lobby and then a little bit of work for the township. Cause if we go forward with this, the office space for the players would be utilized by the lobby expansion and by the interior bathrooms, the bathrooms for the playhouse itself. And they would need space in the potty shed for their offices. So it's kind of a two-move basis.
So what I learned was that, and it may not be true, that the bathrooms that we funded will become gender neutral bathrooms? Okay,
They
Could you
need to be
clarify?
they need to be gender specific bathrooms.
okay,
According to our building department, they need to be gender specific. I've
okay,
asked that question half a dozen times and that's the answer I've gotten back. They need to be gender specific.
thank you.
Specifically for a building permit, for a C of O, you need gender specific.
Thank you.
They happen after that. Other people change their gender specificity to
Yeah,
non-specific. It's post C of O from what I understand.
okay,
I asked Brian that question multiple times and the same answer I've gotten is they need to be gender specific.
okay,
Where are we on the 500 process wise?
For the annex portion.
Yeah.
So that 500 was removed in the
Right.
board selectmen level. And
But
they got to 265.
Was there a recommendation
With the recommendation
considered by the Board of Finance?
that I'm unsure. Unclear.
what
Yeah.
annex?
So that there was a two-phase request. It was $500,000 for the annex, which is basically the area between the main portion of the powerhouse
Okay.
and where they keep their props. So they
Right,
keep
right.
that area to be changed over to an educational annex.
Right, so that,
That had $1 million price tag to it. They went for a grant, 500,000, they got 100. So they were looking for 500 from the grant, 500 from the town, make $1 million to be able to construct that along with the lobby, along with everything else that was happening on the campus. But they were only able to get $100,000 on a grant, so they're short by 400,000. So the thought was, that the town would show support to the powerhouse itself by going forward with the 265 and tell them, go back to the drawing board, see if you can come up with the money for the annex, and if you can come back with the money, then come back to the town at that point in time. But to move forward with the lobby, we needed an additional 200,000 on the town side to make it equal.
Is there a major decrement of deferring that construction a year? I mean, there's no big advantage to doing everything at once.
There is in the fact
No,
that,
some of it.
well, because in order to, well, there isn't to do the lobby, but to do the exterior bathrooms, there is. So to do the exterior bathrooms, you've got to cut the floor of the annex to get to, you gotta do some work to get piping and electrical and everything over to that area. So that's why the annex was good to do all together. With the exterior bathroom, not necessarily with the lobby. You could do the lobby and then not take that portion down, but to try to do the bathroom and the lobby and leave the annex in the middle, then take the annex down and build the annex in the middle, that's a little bit more problematic and more costly.
But you could put all the lines in,
I can put all the lines in, but I have to cut the floor,
right?
you know, and the floor, and then I'm putting back a floor that's at a different elevation than it would need to be when the annex comes back in. Because when the annex, if they do the annex, the floor of the annex has to drop for ADA purposes. It's because you can't, the connectivity from the existing lobby to the annex, there's a delta. So and I can't get the grades correct there, so we actually had to drop the annex floor. So the thought was, I met with Carl and Rose yesterday, and the thought was, well, I could cut the floor, and then I put it back at its original location. Then when they go to do the annex, take it all out again and put it at its correct elevation. You're kind of doing work twice, which is so. There's pluses and minuses.
So is this one of those situations where, while they're trying to raise that funding deficit, the outside bathrooms would wait in advance?
I think so. That's,
Yeah.
you know, the overall.
You think that's
thought was-
fair?
Right, and the thought that while there's a need, I'm not hearing complaints on it, right? So the thought would be,
Right.
let's take care of this and then build our way out of the
Right.
whole facility versus trying to do these two pieces. And
World
then,
doesn't change if you wait a year on that.
right, I think that's, you know, a little bit more prudent would be to take care of the lobby, take care of that area, and then we can work our way through. And it gives the players some time to generate some additional revenue, some additional donations to then possibly do it, and then do the two together, to your point.
Is there a timeline that you would put to the project so that we're not 3-5 years out?
That's not my call, it's not mine to ask, you know, that's for you guys, for Young to determine.
So we're not approving any monies for the annex until they have their funding set.
I believe so, yeah, I think that was the guidance from the board of selectmen, was that go back, they were gonna remove the 500, go back and gain some more money, but we'll show you support.
It's actually kind of generous.
Yes, agreed, but this is basically falling within the, now I'm forgetting the name of it, the public-private partnership.
Mhm.
What's it called? I'm forgetting.
Sounds good to me.
No, there's a name for it. The ordinance by the town council.
Well, the Bach.
The Bach amendment, yes.
Well, it does and it doesn't, only because they were asking for town funds. The moment that they're asking for town funds, they gotta come to you for approval. The moment you give the approval on the town funds, the Bach amendment doesn't exist anymore because there's town funds associated with it. If they were to do it strictly on their own, that's the Bach amendment. You know, if they were saying, we raised $1 million and we wanna build a new annex, they would have to come to the council and ask underneath the Bach amendment to go and do it. But since it's being funded from two, you're already seeing, so, cause you could say no to the 500. And then the project doesn't go forward. So the Bach amendment isn't in play when town funds are in play, the Bach amendment is in play when town funds are not in.
I'm not sure that's
I'm
right.
not sure
But-
that's right.
But when they have to go to you to ask for
Well,
the money.
go ahead though.
So, but I, that's the way I look at it, is if they were gonna do it separate, they have to come to you and ask permission to go do it.
I mean, I get your logic, but there's
Yeah.
another way to look at it.
Yeah,
It's fine.
But maybe we just move ahead.
That's town buildings, the next is the highway department, we have two requests. One is for a combination vacuum jet truck at $640,000. We had one, we took it out of service 2 years ago, and based upon our needs, we need the unit. And then we have $475,000 for replacement of our cold storage building. If you look at the post-treatment building at the wastewater plant, or where our fuel depot is, it's the gray building that sits next to it, and it houses our off-season equipment and a lot of our materials. It's been in our budget for 10 years, and it's been marching its way forward. It's been sitting at the 3-year mark, and now we're at the point where it needs to come down. We're actually, the girders are rotting, there's some other things going on, and eventually we're gonna just have to decommission the building, and then we won't have any area for storage for our off-season equipment. But the vacuum truck itself, this is what it looks like. And it, as far as where our surrounding towns are, Ridgefield is waiting for delivery on almost the exact same unit. Wilton has one, it's 2 years old, Darien has one, and Greenwich is in the market for the exact same piece of equipment because they're running into the exact same problems we are. We have backhauls that help clean out our catch basins, and they're inadequate to the job. So to try to be able to satisfy our permit requirements, which is our MS4 requirement, which is our municipal separate storm sewer system permit with the DEP, every catch basin has to be cleaned annually. And with the equipment that we have, we can't satisfy that portion of the requirement. We did look at, possibly renting, and the rentals is $3,600 for a daily rate up to 8 hours a day. And the state actually did go out to bid on this. They got no bidders. So the state went out for bid for this specific item in District 3, which is where we are, and they got no bidders to come forward. So a daily rate of $3,600 for up to 8 hours worth of work that's a lot. That's $15,000 a week. We're looking at having this unit work between 100 to 140 days a year. That's going to pay for itself. Granted, there's maintenance associated with it, and it's a very large unit, but it will pay for itself in several years based upon what we need to do, what we're able to do, what we're required to do, what we're able to do, and if we had to satisfy it versus a rental. And we basically cleared our calendar for capital requests for this year, looking for this coming forward. We kind of cleared, so this is it. I'm a little upset that the building is in there, but the building's been there for 10 years waiting to come forward. I can't really do anything about the building. The building is the building. Or else I would be at just this piece of equipment this year, knowing that it's $640,000. But we have 3 staff members that have already used these from previous employers, so they're already trained on it. They already know how to utilize it. It's not a question that we don't know how to do it. And we had one for 15 years up until about 2 years ago. We didn't replace it at the time.
What's the lifespan on these vehicles?
15 to 20 years. There's some refurbishment that needs to be done at about the 10-year mark on the tank, things of that nature, but they've gone through a very big upgrade and rethought from what the unit that we had to now, as far as how everything works. They've got interior jets that clean out the inside. Last time, basically what happened was the tank itself rotted itself out, where the seal is, just rotted itself out over time. And once we got to the point where we had to replace the tank and all the rest of it, we got to the point where we're like, this is just too costly to make the fix. But now they've gone through a better redesign, and like I said, they've got interior jets that clean out the unit, clean out the tanks and the pipes, and there's some better maintenance requirements associated with it that'll get you to the 15-20-year mark. So that kind of tells you that that's the, like I said, it's the unfortunate thing is that it's a large piece of equipment, but we did kind of clear our calendar. So if you look at it, we've got no other equipment slated for this year except for this one piece. And we'll see. And our neighbors all have it. It's not the question, well, okay, just because our neighbors have it. We had one, and we just didn't replace it 2 years ago. Probably should have replaced it 2 years ago. We wouldn't be having this conversation. We didn't at the time. We thought we could handle it through our backhaul, so we just can't handle the existing equipment that we have, the workload that we have. Any questions on that before I get to the transfer station? I got like 9 minutes left. The transfer station is easy. It's a replacement of the commercial railing, $35,000. This is in our commercial section, the railing that it protects a fall into the dumpster. it came with the plan, so it was built in 1998, 1999. It's 25 years old with, you know, commercial operations next to it. We've repaired it as much as we possibly can. It's to the point where we just need to wholesale remove it and put in new safety bearing. So, and, you know, it's quite a fall off that into a dumpster 10, 12 feet down.
And then take a beating.
And they take a beating, right? So it's a question of that, you know, it's time. It's just part of, you know, the operations of the station itself. The Parks Capital, and I think John went over this on everything that he had, but this is his request for his maintenance work as far as his equipment. Everything here is a replacement except for the stand-up machine. This is the stand-up machine. In essence, it can do many things, but it's a plow, it's a blower, it can do 4-season work for him, which is an excellent thing. And then as far as infrastructure goes, we had a series of infrastructure improvements. The majority of it, the selectmen cut out the Kiwanis splash pad design. They want us to make a larger look at the area of Kiwanis as a master plan. And then looking forward on the rest of it, they took out the pickleball plaza. I know you've gotten a lot of emails on that. And they took out the basketball court at Kiwanis specifically, again, to take a look at a larger overall look at Kiwanis itself. And John has an ad in here for a pavilion at Waveney, which is this is a picture of the pavilion at Waveney, right next to the softball fields. And right now, Rec uses tents. They put tents out there for all their summer programs. It'd be nice to have a nice structure out there, and then it could be utilized for other people for picnicking and things of that nature.
Could it be used for the ice skating rink? Is it in
So
that
why not?
general
In the
location?
general, yeah, if you look on the bottom of this where it says not to scale, it's basically where the rink is
Okay.
there.
Hmm.
Yeah, they could have that as a place for people to go and, you know, sit and picnic after, take your skates off and walk over there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, what are the difference in price, Tiger, from the top sample to the bottom on that page?
oh, I don't know. He has an estimate of 110,000. That's a question for John for this evening.
Okay,
So I'm sorry, you were saying it's a pavilion next to the location of the ice rink. It wouldn't be over where, like, because there's a parking lot right there where we
No,
put
if you
okay.
look on the screen where the exit is, it's adjacent to the softball fields along that access road.
Got it.
And then Capo, we're under construction, and then there's $2 million for Dunning. And that's specifically for this exterior work, this circle and the parking lots associated with it for connectivity between the high school, Dunning, the track, the turf, the tennis courts, everything in one shot. So that's basically taking up this parking lot, redoing this parking lot here, and then redoing the circle. And the thought is that it wouldn't be this year's work, it would be next year's work, meaning 2026. But we would be designing and bidding and then going out to bid, so we're ready to go come June 18th when school closes of next year. So we'll be in the fiscal year that we're requesting, but it won't be this summer, it'll be the following summer. So I don't know if you have any other questions on Parks Capital itself.
So and I'm sorry if I missed it. I'm a little confused on the whole Dunning stuff because we had approved money
You did, and right
last year, and I know that they didn't get the private funding to match.
now, that's correct.
So
Right now, they're focused on Capo and finishing Capo and
Right.
taking Capo, and then they're gonna turn back around and refocus on Dunning. And
so this money, so it never got handed out. So this would just be it's
No,
the
this-
same, it's sort of the same proposal, except it never got executed, and so it would just be bringing it back.
no, two different things. You
Okay.
gave them money for the press box and the site work, okay, for the press box. This is exterior to Dunning Stadium itself. This is strictly the parking areas.
Phase 2, the phase 2 of it.
Phase 2, phase 3, however we want to look at it, but it was basically the town's response. It was determined back, the Board of Finance and the council at the time determined that this was not necessarily the purview of the athletic foundation because it had to do with connectivity for all of our amenities and our school. And to try to get proper traffic flow through that area, so it was all a town function, so that the money should just strictly be coming from the town.
But this issue has come up in the past where we approve a project and it goes on hiatus and then it gets revived again. I think that we need to have an expectation that if we have approved a project and it does not move forward, then the funds should expire and they should be represented at a time when they're ready to go with whatever new version there is.
Well, the version hasn't really changed as far as what the overall improvements to the stadium are or this work. It's just a question of time. But that's a question for you, or Selectmen, Board of Finance, and Town Council to determine if you want to put a time frame or a time limit on appropriations. It's not.
I
Well,
don't
and I
know.
was also I was under the impression too, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Tiger, but I thought like some of the stuff that we had wanted to do from a town perspective was they were sort of complementary to some of the stuff that was more of the, that the athletic foundation wanted to do. So we were trying to, it's almost like being more efficient, kind of doing it all together, rather than doing it, kind of piecemeal. Am I getting that wrong as well?
There is some continuity or some connectivity.
Like the 88 bathrooms, doing that at the same time as the other
Well,
changes.
there's because there's certain work that needs to happen outside the fencing versus inside the fencing. And then there's certain things that work complementary as far as when should you do the construction on one versus we were trying to phase it according to that. There is a little bit of an overlap here on the fact that there is some work that's outside the fencing that might come into play that will be conflicted with the work that is proposed here. But we're trying to work through that, and that during the planning phase, we try to make sure that there isn't a duplication of work or one trips over the other.
Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to leave. I have another meeting. So I'm gonna respectfully
That's okay.
sign off. Thank you so much for taking us through this. I really appreciate it.
Rita.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Phase 2 hasn't previously been approved, right?
No, it has not. This first, it was just, we gave you the 4 phases, but no.
Right.
Everything was
We
separated.
saw the drawings.
Yeah. Then the next is just the wastewater plant itself. So $1.4 million, and there's some work that needs to be done, or some replacements of existing equipment, various pumps totaling about $106,000, some motor control repair. We're continuing our zinc study. We'll be looking at our permit coming due in January of 26. So we're looking to continue that zinc study going forward. That's money well spent to try to make sure that we're moving to our permit levels, what we need to do without having to go through a capital cost. And then we have just the larger items are the next phase of our I&I study. We have basically remediation work associated with our phase 1 work, and then engineering going forward for our phase 2 work. So we're working through, I don't know, Nick, if you remember when they gave this presentation, AECOM gave this presentation of the WPCA, but in essence, we're gonna have a series of times when we're gonna be planning for the next year and working on this year's work that we planned from like the year prior. So for the next couple of years, we'll have duplicative roles as far as planning for the next year and working through what they had come up with for the first year. So that's why you'll see an engineering for next year's work and work plan for this year for what was already planned. The majority of it is manhole rehabilitation and some sewer relining, specifically in the zones or the areas where we're seeing the greatest infiltration or inflow. It's a multi-phased approach, a multi-year approach, totaling approximately $4 million of work. And then the only other item that we have in here is a replacement of our trailer emergency generator for our pump stations. We've got 3 exterior pump stations to the facility, and we've got 3 interior pump stations to the facility. And if any one of them goes down, it's a problem for us. They've all got a generator. They're all associated with a generator. But if we have a problem with that generator, we would have to bring in one or actually have a service come in and pump the pump station on a repetitive basis until we can repair whatever it was. So we had a trailer generator. It's beyond its useful life, and we're looking to replace it. And we're looking at the fact that it could be hopefully utilized in other locations, not just the pump stations if it's not needed. So say we had a problem at Vine Cottage, we had a problem at the teen center at the annex, we could then utilize it there. And then if we had a problem at the pump station, we would then have to obviously prioritize it out.
What do we do with unanticipated repairs to the sewer lines? Is that a budgeted item or?
We have monies in sewer rehab, and depending upon how great it is.
Is that in the operating?
No, the sewer rehab is in the capital.
Okay.
So that's right here, it's about $30,000.
30 grand.
So what we have is basically, we come forward and we TV everything. We TV about a third of the line a year and
Wow.
clean it out. And we concentrate sometimes, a lot of it on the restaurant row because of grease and fats. Fog is what it's called, fat, oil, grease. So we want to make sure that those are all cleaned out. And then in that process, we TV them and then take a look. And if there's something that we find, then we repair it there.
Don't they have separators? Isn't it?
They do have separators, but some bypass their separators, some just, it overflows, some don't
Okay.
have separators, depending on what it is. Your house, at your house, you don't have a separator at your house.
Right.
Those are.
But they're restaurants,
The restaurants all are supposed to have grease and fat separators. That's the health department, Jen does a great job of
Okay.
making sure that they're connected and that they're working, and if there is a problem, she's on them to make sure that there's. But nonetheless, there's still fats, oils and greases that are coming to our system. That's why we concentrate on these, and they're also our oldest, because it's the center of town.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Those are all the result of the AECOM study, right, Tiger?
I, yes, it was. So, and then ongoing, so we did the initial study, right? And then that identifies areas, and then, so that's like, it's like a project development, and then, design development, and then we get into the actual nitty gritty. So you've got, this engineering phase, this next one is now into the nitty gritty. We've identified everywhere where we need to go. Now we get into the nitty gritty of exactly how to attack those areas.
Okay.
So that's the goal, and then eventually, we'll get to the point where during a storm, we won't have concerns over the plant and its operations.
Do you have a meeting in London?
I do, yeah.
So-
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's department head. I don't really want to miss it.
Yeah.
So, we're at the end anyways. So that's it. We're
Stop.
I know that corner.
Good. That's not near you. That's your road. I think it is. I think it's lost it. Yeah, I kind of like that one. It's kind of good.
Thank you, Tiger.
Not a
Yes,
problem.
thank
Thank you
you.
guys. And then, Nick, we'll look to see you tonight.
Yeah, night.
I'll try to get some of these questions answered for you before that time, so we're good.
Quick question,
Thanks,
that
Nick.
and has nothing to do with the.
Thank you.
storm
Goodbye.
And the sewage, commingling.
No, that's combined sewers. We don't have any combined sewers.
You have stormwater runoff going through.
We have stormwater that's infiltrating or
Yes.
inflowing in, but we don't have any, like some towns have, where stormwater goes
Right.
right into their sanitary system. It's called a combined system.
Right,
That's New Haven. We don't have,
Okay.
everything for us is separated, but we are seeing inflow and infiltration. We're seeing
you-
stuff coming in. That's what this is.
But are
right?
is the IMI working on that?
That's what it's working
Okay.
on. Yes, exactly. That's the exact reason for it.
Okay,
All right.
Thanks for setting it up, Christina.
oh,
No problem.
my pleasure, thank you, Tyler.
All right.
Oh,